The Group of Seven, or G7, which includes the world's richest democracies, has agreed to use the proceeds from frozen Russian assets to provide Ukraine with $50 billion in loans. This move is aimed to ensure that Ukraine can continue its fight against Russia's invasion and to signal Western resolve to Moscow. Leaders from Britain, Canada, France, Germany, Italy, Japan, and the United States reached this agreement on Thursday, along with top officials from the European Union, where most of the frozen Russian assets are held due to the war. This deal is the result of months of intense negotiations. Initially, the United States pushed to seize the assets directly, but faced strong opposition from European countries. Despite the agreement, officials say some key questions still need to be resolved. So, why has the G7 adopted this plan? The European Union has already planned to use these profits from the assets to fund arms and other aid for Ukraine. The United States wanted to provide a large lump sum to Ukraine now rather than waiting. EU leaders agreed, partly to ensure Ukraine isn't short of funds if there isn't a change in US policy, especially if Trump returns to the White House or Congress delays funding again. Where will the $50 billion come from? The money will come from the loans provided by G7 members and the European Union, backed by future interest from frozen Russian assets. These loans will be repaid using either interest generated or reparations paid by Russia. About 260 billion euros in Russian assets have been frozen under sanctions, with 190 billion euros held in the EU. How much will each G7 member lend to Ukraine? The precise amounts are still being determined. The United States has authorized to provide up to $50 billion but expects other countries to contribute, reducing the US share. The EU might provide half of the total, and Canada has committed $5 billion. When will the money arrive and what is it for? Funds are expected to start arriving by the end of this year, with multiple disbursement channels for military budget, reconstruction, and humanitarian support. Japan would participate by funding non-military expenditures. What if the assets are no longer frozen? EU sanctions that froze the assets are reviewed every 6 months, requiring the approval of all 27 EU members. There's a risk that a single country like Hungary could block the renewal and unfreeze the assets. EU officials are exploring options to mitigate risk. If Ukraine and Russia reach a peace deal, the assets could be a part of reparations to Ukraine, helping to repay the loans. And how has Russia responded? Russian President Vladimir Putin has called the West's seizure of Moscow's assets theft and promised consequences. Foreign Ministry spokesperson Maria Zakharova warned that Moscow's response would be very painful for the EU. The EU maintains that the interest generated from the assets are windfall profits and do not belong to Russia.